All right, and for this one, we're doing something a little different. Typical risottos, everyone made risotto before. Yes, I know some of you have. Usually you would use, what? Rice, right? It's very classic Italian dish. You would use a short grain rice. Today we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're gonna focus on onions as the vegetable. The simple, humble onions, it's sort of hidden in the background, but it's probably one of your best aromatics. Very delicious, very sweet. And we're gonna use, instead of rice, we're gonna use buckwheat. I'm gonna get to buckwheat in a second. Onions, we're gonna chop them up small. If you have excellent knife skills, no issue at all. If you don't, food processor will take care of that in less than 10 seconds. So definitely use that. And we're gonna put it into a pan with a decent lip on it because we're gonna be adding stock to it. And we're gonna add about 1 onion worth, which is about 1.5 cups. There's a large onion.
Not just sweet onions, just regular.
So this is just a regular Spanish onion. You can use any onion for this. The caramelization comes from the sugars inside the onions, right? That you want them to come out. It gets really sweet. It starts to create this sort of browning effect. Every onion will do that. Some onions have a little bit more of that sugar. Some onions have less. So Spanish onions work really well with this. You can use red onions. They would work really well too. But even regular cooking onions, they'll work. Not a problem. So that's all we need is a little bit of salt. You can add garlic if you want. I'm going to add one of my favorite vegetables. Does anyone know what this is? Fennel. Yes, fennel. So with the fennel, what we're going to do is take the tops off. These can be used for stock. They're fantastic. The fronds can be used as like a garnishing herb at the end. Just wash them really well. And with the fennel, wash it, trim off any darker bits. And to cut it, I'm going to start with it in half. This core here is really tough. So that one there you can remove ahead of time. I'll get to that at the end. But a really easy way to dice this as well, to get a similar size as the onion, is because it's layered like an onion. All I need to do is cut across this way, right? And I'm going to keep about 1 inch at the end and not go through that so it stays together. So I'm making little vertical cuts here, right? So that it sort of fans out, and then I go across the cut, and we should have a nice small dice. It doesn't have to be exactly the same size. No one's judging. Right? So we have all these little beautiful fennel pieces. The fennel is gonna add a lot of flavor, some beautiful aroma to this as well. And cooked fennel tastes really different than raw fennel. So some people avoid raw fennel because it has sort of a licorice flavor. When you cook it, that licorice flavor gets a little milder, and it starts to become really nice and sweet.
Yeah. So onions and fennel both have fiber, which we tend to think about as being good for your gut because of mobility, right? So that's good. But the other thing is that more of the research actually is showing that there's a specific type of fiber called prebiotic. So what are some of the most common prebiotics that you've heard about? Anybody? Sorry? Anyone?
I heard someone say it, I think.
Sauerkraut. Okay, yeah. So a lot of times we think of prebiotics as probiotics. So I just want to make that distinction, okay? So probiotics are found in your colon, in your gut, and it's the healthy bacteria. You need that. So like I said, and those come from yogurt, you could get it from kefir products, aged cheese. So anything that has a live and activated culture written in the ingredient list, that is a probiotic. Now, if your immune system is compromised, you do want to stay away from them and have prebiotics instead. And so things like onion is actually a great source of prebiotic. And what is that? A prebiotic actually feeds the healthy bacteria. So it's the food for it. So things like onions, buckwheat, tomatoes, asparagus, any type of whole grain, soybeans. These are all types of prebiotics that feed the good bacteria in your colon. And so we're really, for this recipe, kind of sparking up those prebiotics to give you a healthy dose to feed the good bacteria in your body. And again, that helps with your energy levels, your immune system. It helps fight infection. So it's really important to get that amount in your day-to-day. The only thing I would say is that if you are experiencing any type of diarrhea, then you want to kind of avoid these fibers for the time being during the episode. Yeah.
Okay, so the onions for caramelization, they can take, at about a medium heat, they can take up to about 10 minutes. So that's the hardest part. You're not really doing much. We're just watching them. It's something you don't want to leave because sugars are coming out of the onions, right? And what do we think of anytime sugar and heat comes together?
Brown.
It can burn. Yeah, it can burn, right? So even from a vegetable, sugar coming out, it can burn at the bottom of the pan. So every once in a while, you just want to give it a stir, but pretty much let it do its thing. After about 10 minutes, we're fast forwarding. I don't think you want to watch this caramelize for 10 minutes. You're looking at something like this. So something where it's a little golden brown. It has some color to it. It's soft. Sorry?
In my mind, caramelized onions, because I make them in hot, they should be like brown.
Yeah, so this is like a golden brown. So this is, for the risotto, this is the minimum. If you want to keep going, so you can go even longer, absolutely. But at about 10 minutes or so, you're getting this sort of caramelized state, and that's when we're going to continue with the rest of the recipe. Now, we're going to have to imagine that this is caramelized, because I have to skip to the next part. And we're going to use, instead of rice, we're using buckwheat.
Yes,
Has
so
anyone used
prebiotic.
buckwheat? Prebiotic. Has anyone used buckwheat before? Okay, so not very common in North America. We don't use it as often. It's a little more common in Asian cultures. It's used a lot in soba noodles. Have you heard of soba noodles? That's buckwheat flour, right? Buckwheat, even though it has wheat in the name, it's actually not part of the wheat family. It's not a grass. It's a seed. And it's the plant is actually related to rhubarb. So that's a more common North American plant. Buckwheat is from the same family, and there's no gluten in it. So it's a seed. So if it is something, if you're intolerant, it's something that maybe you can try as well. It takes 10 minutes to cook until tender, which I love. I'm happy about.
Very quick.
And it has a really, really nice grassy flavor to it, which is not maybe the most appealing. Maybe that's not the word I should use. But has a really, really nice aroma and taste, and very easy to use. So once your onions are caramelized, we're going to add about a cup or so. And now these are untoasted. This is what untoasted looks like. When it's toasted, Steffi, if you don't mind, the one in front, this is toasted buckwheat, so sometimes you'll see it like this. Is also referred to as kasha. So sometimes you kasha cereal or kasha flakes or something. It's just the toasted version of buckwheat.
But you can use,
It's okay.
so we have other whole grains that are prebiotic too. So quinoa, we have here wheat berries. You could also use brown rice. So these are also other prebiotic whole grains that you could interchange as well.
Now with risotto, you have to add a liquid, right? So we're going to add a vegetable. We have a vegetable stock here. You can use chicken stock, any liquid, and we'll add a little bit at a time. Here's my spoon again. It's not as finicky as rice, so we can add a little bit more. We can add it like in about 3 stages, and it'll have absorbed all of the liquid. And again, it takes about 15 minutes because there's other ingredients in there. If it was just the buckwheat, it would take a little less time. But about 15 minutes until it's really nice and tender. And the only way to taste when it's tender is to try it. And if it has a little bit of a tenderness, a little bit of a bite to it, but it's soft most of the way through, you're good to go. So after 10 minutes.
Yes, question?
And the stock you're using for the risotto, are you keeping it at like a simmer?
Yes. Yeah.
While you're adding
Yeah, you want to keep it at a simmer for a couple reasons, right? For food safety, we want to make sure it's at least 60 degrees, so above that danger zone. The second reason is we want to make sure that the ingredients inside the pan stay hot. If you were to add cold liquid to it, then you're just slowing the process down completely, right? So you want to make sure that it is simmering. And even if you don't have, it on top of your stovetop, you can have it, just in a measuring cup and just microwave that so it's nice and hot, steaming, and just slowly add that, and that should work as well. So, I made a big batch here, but after about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we have our super creamy, and it's such a simple dish. I mean, it's a few ingredients, and then you can season it at the end. So I add just a little bit of lemon zest to it. Again, wash it really well. The sharp cheese is always going to come out in my kitchen, and you can use Parmesan cheese. You can use like a sharp goat's milk cheese on top.
You just want to remember that if it is like one of those aged cheeses that have that live and activated culture, if you are immune compromised, you want to avoid that because that's a probiotic, right? So just because, yes, it's a healthy bacteria, it's helping your gut system, but again, during those times, you want to avoid that.
All right, so those fennel tops, we talked about before. Just a little bit on top. And that's it.
There you go.
Really simple. Done. Buckwheat risotto. So a little bit different than your regular risotto. Okay, cool.